You're welcome, 49er fans. Just kidding. I'm not getting ahead of myself, but you know what I'm talking about. He's gone, and we did it. Welcome to the Schuh Show, the most watched Schuh Show in the world. Definitely the most watched show on YouTube on Fridays.
No doubt about it.
About it. News. Niners lost another assistant coach. I wouldn't be sad about it, though. I feel like they're cutting the dead weight. Rich Scangarello, quarterback coach, if you want to call him that. No longer the Niners quarterback coach. He is the offensive coordinator for the University of Kentucky. I bet the dude got a nice raise. What I hear is that colleges are actually paying a little bit more for their assistant coaches than NFL guys than the NFL these days, which is wild. Maybe it's the pandemic. And the NFL's not making as much money as it used to. It's probably a little, Anyway, Scangarello out. I don't think the Niners are tripping. I think they brought him back because of the work he did with Jimmy Garoppolo. And, well, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo won't be here next year. We don't know yet. What do you think of this?
I mean, it's interesting. So when Tom Pelissero broke that news, I just have to read out this tweet because the second part of it tickles me a little bit. The University of Kentucky is hiring 49ers quarterbacks coach Rich Scangarello, can't even get that out, as its new offensive coordinator per sources. A widely respected quarterback developer. Scangarello replaces Liam Cohen, who took the Rams offensive coordinator job left behind. So
you can break the story, but you have to call him a highly respected quarterback developer. Like, who has he ever developed?
Yeah, Jimmy. If you read that, you think to yourself, damn, the Niners really lost out on a quality assistant. It's going to be hard to replace him. And then you flash forward to 49ers Twitter, and it's like, thank God he's gone. Celebrate good times. Come on.
That's how I feel. I'm not even a Niner fan. I'm just quality control, and I'm in favor of things that make the Niners better. And I think this is going to make I never understood. Look, to me, Kyle is very good with coaches. Yes. But he there's one, it's not even a flaw, but you can tell he's trying to groom offensive coordinators and head coaches. I don't blame him. That's his coaching tree. But then we talked about it last week when they promoted what's-his-face to tight ends coach. He has no experience coaching tight ends, and I'm sure he's a future offensive coordinator, but this year when he's coaching the tight ends, he's not going to be offering anything to them. And that's Scangarello. Like, he's been a coordinator before he came here. He's a coordinator again, and he's someone who could be on Kyle Shanahan's tree. But in the meantime, while he's your quarterback coach, he gives you nothing.
Yeah. So, what value is he adding there? That's a great question. I agree on the Brian Fleury.
Right. That's
tight ends coach. It just doesn't feel as clean as the Leonard Hankerson promotion, where like you get it in that instance. You understand what they're trying to do in promoting Leonard Hankerson to the wide receivers coach. Brian Fleury, it does feel like you're preparing him for the next step. But what about right now? What about the tight end room right now? And that's my question around this one is, what value was Rich Scangarello offering? I mean, I mentioned in that tweet, widely respected quarterback developer. I'm just not clear on which quarterbacks we're referring to him developing.
It's fair to have like coordinators in training on your staff. That's great. Yes. But the two best position coaches on the team, the running back coach and the D-line coach, are not aspiring coordinators.
No.
They are guys who are the master of the one craft. And Kosaric, look at his resume. He's never been anything other than a D-line coach. He has no aspiration. He's the best at what he does. And it's nice to have a guy like that is giving 100% to that job and is the best at that job. It's nice and isn't aspiring to do more. How many guys like that do you have? It'd be nice to have that at quarterback. And so we're going to talk next about who they should get. I'm thinking someone who's actually like an expert on the mechanics of playing quarterback, not someone who's aspiring to be more than a quarterback coach. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I do think that the last thing I want to say is this is good for Lance. Scangarello was a Jimmy guy. The next guy will be more of a Lance guy. And someone says, take his boy Sudfeld. Yeah, the Niners need to commit to a style of quarterback now that Trey Lance is their starter. And I think you're going to see a new type of quarterback come in and a new type of quarterback coach come in.
I would agree with that. And you would think they'd fill out the rest of the quarterback room with at least attempt for a Tyrod Taylor, a Marcus Mariota, some quality backup that is in the same vein of being able to be a mobile quarterback, that someone that is a mobile quarterback.
Seems like the whole world expects it to be Tyrod, right? Like the whole world.
Yes.
It's
With
gonna
the
be
Anthony
Tyrod.
Lynn connection, it's just too obvious.
Gonna be
But
Tyrod.
it's
Yeah.
fair to assume that both of those quarterbacks could be looking for starting positions, right? They're both that fringe level of starter, backup. They might be looking for that money. So I don't know. I think the Niners go after both of those individuals. They may have to settle for someone a little bit less than a Tyrod Taylor or a Marcus Mariota. But the Niners are now dealing with pretty significant losses. Like, even if you look at Rich Scangarello as, well, someone that didn't add too much value, and, you felt like it was a good replacement for Wes Welker, and that Mike McDaniel adds a level of genius, but really it's Kyle Shanahan's show. Now we're talking about Rich Scangarello, Mike McDaniel, John Embry, Wes Welker, Butch Berry, Zach Yenzer. I mean, the last two I couldn't tell you a damn thing about, but that's still 6 coaches that you've lost off of the staff. So that's significant turmoil for a 49ers coaching staff, and you've got to refill those positions.
Feels like there's a major transition happening with the 49ers. It just kind of feels like something big is happening, and some people are on board and some people aren't. I wonder what that could be. All right, let's stick with Rich Scangarello.
Some sort of a shift here is happening.
I don't know what it could be. All right, so Scangarello out, deuces. Who do you think the 49ers will get to replace Rich Scangarello? Now, last time he left. They brought in Shane Day, who was just, he coached all kind of stuff. He was not an inspiring addition, and then they let him go and brought back Scangarello. I'm hoping they can get someone good.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, when your resume says he's coached all kinds of stuff, that's not the guy you're after. That is not your first candidate. Look at what the Chiefs are doing, all right? The Chiefs today announced Matt Nagy coming in as senior assistant and quarterback coach. That's a quality hire. Like, whatever you have to say about Matt Nagy as a head coach, I think you can admire the fact that he has a rich resume and has shown some offensive coordinator chops. You bring him in for that type of a role to support Patrick Mahomes. To me, that's the type of name that you're looking for if you're a quality franchise, if you're a quality organization. So I think that the 49ers should not settle. I think the temptation will be to promote from within, right? You could see Bobby Slowick getting promoted to that position. He's been linked to the offensive coordinator role as well. Yeah. That seems like a prime interior candidate to get some type of a boost. But I love the rumors floating around about John Beck. You've got Lance already going to train with him this offseason. To me, that's a no-brainer. He was with the Jets last year, but he's out from under that contract. He worked magic with Zach Wilson for sure. But I think in working with Lance, it could be different.
Well, he played for Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan in Washington.
Right.
He's like their designated quarterback coach outside of the facility. And this guy has his own thing going. Like, this is a guy who may not want to be a position coach. Like me. Yeah, he's an independent contractor. He's his own boss. He makes a lot of money, sets his own hours, makes a lot of, he's got the dream right now. Right. And what the Niners do is they'll send Lance to him in the offseason, which doesn't technically break the rules, because he's not on your coaching staff, but he is. And so everything you want him to learn is basically, it's an extension. It's totally a loophole. It's like, so would it be worth them to get rid of that and have him actually, I love it. I think they should bring on a guy like Beck, someone who actually dedicates their life to the mechanics of playing quarterback, not someone who's looking to become an offensive coordinator or a head coach. Beck would be perfect. He'd be perfect. Don't know if the Niners can make it worth his while, though. You know what I mean?
It's a great point. He left the league and then founded the 3D QB quarterback training program in 2013. So he's down in Huntington Beach, California. Does he want to leave Orange County, the prime beach weather, getting paid significant money, working on his own schedule?
Yeah.
To come and be an assistant and work like 90 hours a week for, the 49ers in Santa Clara?
Maybe we wouldn't say no. He knows Kyle. He works with Kyle, but it would have to be a raise. He'd have to get a lot of money.
You would think so.
So maybe John Beck would be great. I don't know if he would say yes. There's also Quincy Avery, who's worked with Trey Lance. I'm sure there's Joe Montana, who seems to really want to help Trey Lance. Joe Montana's all in. Maybe Steve Young. Maybe Jeff Garcia.
Ooh. Jeff would have. I feel like Jeff could have been in line if he didn't go and get himself, sort of excommunicated by making some stupid comments.
That was so dumb and so unnecessary. Yeah. Anyway,
Yep. I mean, Beck, he was a coordinate, an assistant with the Jets last year. So he's open to the idea. He's not completely opposed to being involved with the NFL. So that to me,
hey, John
strikes
Beck
me
is
as
a natural. But here's all I say. It doesn't have to be someone I've heard of. These
No.
assistant coaches aren't name guys. They're not celebrities. And I trust Kyle Shanahan's judgment. All I'm saying is this time, pick someone who has experience
yes,
developing quarterbacks, not someone that you see as a brilliant tactician. They're different. And I understand you have the ability to spot both. And it's just what you value at that time for that current position. You just did that at tight end. Don't do that at quarterback.
right.
You could actually use a guy who could develop Trey. He needs someone because like the quarterback coach is a caddy. He's telling you
Yes.
what you want the chipping wedge. You want to do it with this, telling you how to do your shots. Not someone who's like, hey man, I've never really played golf. I couldn't tell you, but I'm really good at like the strategies of the sport. And, dude, thanks.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They shouldn't be focused on someone who's involved in the schematics of playing quarterback. They really do need to focus on what Trey is focused on, which is mechanics right now. I mean, he's been clear about that. The Niners have been clear about that. To me, why not create a bridge of continuity from the offseason to the regular season with the John Beck hire? If he's already working with him and working on his throwing mechanics, which is very clearly something that needs to be developed at this point. Something when I saw Trey in person at the Seattle game, I saw him throwing pregame. I thought the same thing. It appeared he was in his head in trying to perfect his mechanics, in particular with the shorter throws, not so much with the deep ones where he's using all of his arm, all of his velocity, but the shorter throws. So to me, create that continuity.
I mean, you're spending 7-8 figures a year on the head coach. You already spent 3 first-round picks and a third on Trey Lance. You're incredibly invested in these. Why not go spend a lot on a quarterback coach? There's no salary cap. There's no rule. Go get the best quarterback coach in the world. Make him an offer he can't refuse. How hard is it? You're worth $4 billion. I mean, it's really just up to Kyle Shanahan saying yes and Kyle Shanahan wanting to do it. But they should be able to get the best quarterback coach in the world, spared no expense, to make sure that their huge investment works out. I mean, how hard is that? Don't bring in the next Shane Day, please. Although Shane Day currently is Herbert's quarterback coach. I don't know what that's about.
And they have proven they get it in the Chris Kocurek payment schedule, right? I mean, they are clearly compensating him in the way that a top D-line coach needs to be compensated, and they're seeing the end result of that. A defensive line that continually overperforms, a defensive line where you're continually finding these gems and developing them. Let's do the same thing in the quarterback room.
Please. Okay, let's talk Jimmy Garoppolo for a while because he might not be on the team that much longer. Or he could be here another year. As Adam Schefter said, a lot of people got mad at him for saying, oh, he just wants attention. I don't know, man. It's Adam Schefter. I think there's some merit to what he's saying. I mean, from our perspective, we know Jimmy Garoppolo very well, and you could sort of tell other fan bases and organizations why they should want him, why he'd be good for them. But the more I actually listen to other fan bases and read articles from other markets, no one's saying Jimmy makes the most sense. Haven't found one team that says Jimmy makes the most sense for us. Have you?
No, I hear people saying, well, if things don't work out, we could settle for Jimmy.
Right. But I mean, the way it looks to me right now, I made a list, hold on, of all the quarterbacks who are available right now. Man, and I lost the list. Hold on. Okay, so here's the problem with Jimmy Garoppolo. You got to trade for him. Yes. And then you either have to pay him a lot. You have to pay him $27 million or extend him. So it's quite an investment.
It is.
And there are comparable quarterbacks who are way cheaper. Like Carson Wentz is going to get cut. And if you look at their numbers, it's hard to say that Jimmy's better than Carson Wentz. Neither one's super exciting, but you could really argue that, like Pittsburgh, why should I trade a second or a third for Jimmy Garoppolo when I could just sign Carson Wentz? And it's the same stopgap bridge thing. You know?
In particular, if your plan is that it's a stopgap, right? You're going to draft a rookie this year. It's only going to be for 2 or 3 seasons. Why not go with the less expensive version?
Because I don't think look, everyone knows what Jimmy Garoppolo is. I don't think anyone thinks he has upside. I don't think anyone thinks he's getting better. I don't think anyone thinks you can win a Super Bowl with him. So there are virtues to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't understand why you make that kind of investment when he's basically a stopgap at best. Maybe the Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill high-level backup for a year who needs to – because honestly, I don't know where he's starting this year if it's not with the Niners. Because Carson Wentz is on the market. Jameis Winston's on the market for cheap. Teddy Bridgewater, Mitchell Trubisky. Those are guys you can sign to be stopgaps. And then there's the trade market. Aaron Rodgers, is he available? Tom Brady, is he available? Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray. There's a lot of things going out there. And so I guess depending on how the market shakes out, some team might feel compelled to get Jimmy. But right now, I don't think that's any team's number one option. So right now, what is Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value, in your opinion?
Well, it's interesting.
If the Niners felt they had to do it today.
Oof. Well, my impression is that everybody's blowing smoke at this particular junction. The Niners are absolutely blowing smoke through every available option that they have, right? All the team-friendly reporters are coming out with all these reports, Jay Glazer, Peter King. Oh, well, the Niners are considering bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back. I mean, you know, he's valuable. He can add to he wins. So that's smoke to me. That is, the Niners have zero intention of bringing Jimmy back, but we can, get into that in a little bit.
I'm not so sure. That's what we're going to be talking about for about the next 20, 25 minutes. So let's get into it. Yes.
And so to me, then you have the other side that's putting out there are all these other available quarterbacks who are of comparable value. And so the trade market is actually pretty soft. And so you have national reporters coming out with that. To me, it's smoke on both sides of that equation. And the truth is still somewhere in the middle. And it hasn't changed for me. If I've got to put the 49ers on the hot seat right now and a team comes in with a trade offer, I'm still going second round value for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I don't see it, man. I don't think there's a trade market for him. I think what we're seeing is there might be a trade market in a couple of months, depending how things work out. Like if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get traded, Brady stays retired, Wilson doesn't get traded, Kirk Cousins doesn't get traded, Watson doesn't get resolved, Kyler, like if things shake out a certain way, maybe.
Right.
But right now, he's so far down the want list for any team.
Yeah.
I think like if the Niners, like right now, I think his trade value is nothing or maybe a sixth at best. It could be different down the line, but really, I think it's a sixth at best right now. And I think that's why we're starting to hear things like, well, maybe the Niners could keep him another year. If they keep him another year and he starts, they'll actually get a third round comp pick for him in 2023. So then Schefter's like, should you take the 2 now? The 2. What if it's a 6? What if it's like teams are like, nah, you know what? We're sort of in wait and see mode. So we'll come back to you on Jimmy Garoppolo, but no one's willing to pull the trigger on that yet. I think it's a 6th at best. And I think that's why the Niners are in a really tough spot with Jimmy Garoppolo. They're like, are we going to get ridiculed for this? Are people going to think we sold low? Are people going to think that we actually ruined this guy and we took an asset and that was a second round pick and won all these games, but everyone knew that we didn't like him and they were winning in spite of him and that we ruined it. We talked him down. And now he's a 6th. We'll get crushed in the media for that. So I think what we're seeing right now is a surprisingly bear market for this guy and the Niners being like, how do we spin this? Because it could change in a month. And everything could have a happy ending. But right now, how do we spin this? This is bad.
It would be very bad if the Niners ended up devaluing an asset in this whole process, right? But my point is, I think you're right about
what they could have got from 2 years ago after they went to the Super Bowl. A 1?
Yeah.
A 1.
Yeah.
So they held on to him too long is what they did. And that's
There's no question about that.
Because we're going to talk about players to trade a little bit longer. You don't – what did Bill Walsh say? You trade a player
a year before – they start that decline.
Because of this.
Yeah.
Because of this. If you can't trade Jimmy, everyone knows what he is. And everyone knows what he is. He's paid a lot of money. There's no upside there. It's not an exciting move. So this is an example of holding onto a guy a year or too long. And that's why I feel like this whole trade market was always wishful thinking.
I think you've portrayed the Niners side of it very well. On the other side, I do believe that it is people attempting to promote the idea that there are all these options available. But when you start to go down the list, from a month ago until now, everything is trending in the direction of the 49ers' favor. everything is trending in a direction of supply and demand working toward Jimmy Garoppolo getting traded, because you look at each individual case. As this Aaron Rodgers thing drags on, you hear more information coming out about it from the Packers front office. It sure as heck sounds like they're going to play hardball again. And Rodgers, bluffed last season. They called his bluff and he was back with Green Bay. I think it's very likely that Rodgers ends up with Green Bay for another season or retiring and playing hardball in that regard. And then Russell Wilson's looking more and more like he's going to be back in Seattle. Deshaun Watson, news coming out recently that, things aren't clearing up quite as well as you would want with all of those cases. The NFL still has a potential suspension lingering over him. And so you see one by one these quarterback assets looking like they're not going to be available. And pretty soon, like, the cream rises to the top. I don't know if I can call Jimmy Garoppolo cream, but he starts to become one of the most attractive assets.
Here's the problem, though. I mean, let's start going through the teams that would actually be interested in him, if there are two.
Okay.
I mean, everyone goes to Pittsburgh first. Well,
yes.
What happens when they decide that, if they decide that Carson Wentz is better, has a stronger, because here's the problem with Jimmy. Here's why teams don't want Jimmy. He's afraid to throw the ball down the field. He doesn't push the ball down. He shrinks the field. Yeah. He plays football on a miniature field. He doesn't throw the ball outside the numbers. He doesn't throw the ball down the field. The field is literally smaller for him. And so that's why he throws more interceptions. Everyone knows you don't have to defend certain parts of the field. I forget the injuries. Carson Wentz gets injured. It's the fact that he plays on a miniature football field. That's frustrating. And you don't have Deebo Samuel. You don't have George Kittle. You don't have Kyle Shanahan. So it's hard to work with that. I think that's the main hesitancy. So a team like Pittsburgh, they could work with Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'd rather have Wentz. So you take Pittsburgh out of the equation. What about a team like Washington? Well, what they could do is sign, say, Jameis Winston or Teddy Bridgewater to be the bridge quarterback. And they're not necessarily better than Jimmy, but they could then draft Malik Willis with the 11th pick. Because if you sign Jimmy, then if you trade for Jimmy, you're probably not drafting a quarterback and all. And Washington tried that last year with the injury-prone vet and Ryan Fitzpatrick and just wasted a freaking year. So my bold prediction is that Jimmy Garoppolo will not be a starting quarterback in the NFL next season unless he's on the 49ers. And we can talk about that in a minute. But let's focus on the rest of the league. I don't think any team looks at him as, we want him to be our starting quarterback this year. I think a lot of teams might look at him as, that'd be a nice, how Tannehill was on the bench for a year, or Trubisky was on the bench for a year. Like I like him. I like him. But not as my starter this year. I'd rather give it to someone with freaking upside, because we know Jimmy has none. And if that doesn't work out, then we got Jimmy. Yeah. We have Jimmy and his consistently inconsistent performances.
I could definitely see the truth being that he's nobody's free agent crush. He's nobody's first choice to go to the dance with. But I do think when you start to look at comparisons, as you did there with Carson Wentz, I do think teams will consider, yes, Jimmy Garoppolo limits you. I was surprised to see that over last season, it was only 30% of his throws were actually limited to that middle of the field area. It was surprising to me that, statistically speaking, it wasn't a higher percentage of throws. But I agree with you. It limits an offense. For the Steelers, though, they had a fairly limited offense. He was one of the quarterbacks. I mean, he doesn't push the ball down the field very much. Not at all. Yeah. But in the Steelers offense this past season, neither did Ben Roethlisberger, and they were able to do well. When you compare him directly to Carson Wentz, you look at, to me, if I'm trying to sell Jimmy Garoppolo over Wentz, I look at a team that started out, looking like the wheels were coming off, and then a quarterback who, even with the controversy of having a number 3 overall pick that the organization traded up significant assets to get, was able to keep the locker room together, was able to be the quarterback, the figurehead for a team that resurged and made it to the NFC Championship game. Whereas at the tail end of the season, Carson Wentz appeared to be failing in that regard and dropping off.
Carson Wentz had a better season than Jimmy Garoppolo last year, like by
statistically.
Far. Yeah. And like with the Steelers, they were 29th in net yards per attempt in passing last week. So their passing offense was awful. Yes. And just to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, like, let's keep doing what we were doing, is not what they should do. And the thing, we could argue who's better, Carson Wentz or Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's Wentz. But the point here is that you don't have to trade for Wentz. He's going to get cut. He's going to be way cheaper. And so when you factor that in, I think it's hard to justify trading. I mean, unless unless the Niners take that 6th, unless you're like, whatever, I'll give him a 6th. And unless the Niners are willing to take that PR hit, because it is a PR hit, then great. So that's where I think the Niners stand right now. Hold on. David says Grant got his wish. I did too. Now bringing a real quarterback coach. Thank you. I agree. Hold on. But we got way more Jimmy. So let's just go with my premise for a second, that his market is depressed. If that's the case, and the best they could get is like a late 6th, or maybe not even a 6th at all, because Pittsburgh's enamored with whoever, Bridgewater, Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, and it just doesn't happen for Jimmy. That he's really looked at as the next Marcus Mariota, someone who needs to spend a year on the bench, the next Trubisky. Do you think the Niners will release him just to create that cap space? Or what they can do, keep him a year and get the 3rd round comp pick, which is probably like with the 110th pick in the draft. What do you think?
You could see them wanting to save a little bit of face and get that compensatory pick. It would be like, oh, well, we got something in return for Jimmy Garoppolo. It wasn't what we were hoping for, but he insulated us throughout this season.
Right.
What's up, Adrian? And so, but at this point for me, it's not about the draft compensation. That's not what matters to me at this point. It's about getting the damn salary off the books.
Thank you. God, it's so nice when we agree. I agree. Who cares about a 3rd round comp pick? That's like the 115th pick in the draft. Who freaking cares? You're gonna essentially waste another season on a quarterback that isn't quite good enough to take you all the way.
Yep.
So you get a 3rd round comp pick? Come on, priorities, people. Right?
That money is absolutely needed. The Niners have to re-sign a plethora of free agents. Plethora is probably a poor choice of words there, but it is a large number of their own freaking free agents. So, to me, that money is essential. That money prevents this team from melting down into a talent bereft freaking team. So to me, you have to get into it.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the key question of the offseason. If he has no market, and we don't know, we'll find out. We argued about that. That was a fun argument. If there is no market for Jimmy, and that's how I feel, will they do the right thing and release him? Because keeping him, and that's going to be our next topic, what happens if they keep him, I think is a big mistake. Getting rid of him, you at least create a lot of cap space. You commit. It's not like he's freaking Jordan Love, Trey Lance. It's not some guy that you were sitting at 25 and you're like, oh, well, I mean, maybe he'll be a starter, but
it might work out.
Yeah, there's no pressure if he's a backup long term. It was a late 1st round pick. It's not a franchise quarterback. You traded up to 3 and gave up 3 first round. You said you said that's a franchise quarterback. We gotta have that guy because Justin Fields just won't do it. Mac Jones just won't. We got to have this franchise quarterback. So, I mean, you got to go all in with this guy and tell your locker room, look, Jimmy's gone. I know you like him, but we're not a family. We're not a social club. This is a business, and this is a business decision. We tried, man. We gave you guys like 3-4 opportunities to go all the way with Jimmy. None of you guys could get it done. We couldn't get it done. We got to try. We need to win the Super Bowl. We're all about winning the Super Bowl now. So if you want to be part of that pursuit, get on board. If not, we'll ship you out with Jimmy Garoppolo too. George, look at you, George. Just kidding.
Is this front office prepared to eat crow in that regard? No. Would they seriously consider releasing Jimmy Garoppolo for zero compensation?
And that's the problem, Rob. And that's what I'm getting you. That's what I'm leading you and the audience to today. A very bleak future. I don't know if you figured out where I'm going with this yet, but no, I don't think that there is I don't think there's a trade market for Jimmy, and I don't think they're going to release him. That's why we're starting to hear things. Well, they might keep him another year. They like Jimmy. And you know what? Trey Lance is real green. I think we're starting to hear that they're not trying to take that hit. They're not trying to take the PR hit. They would rather keep Jimmy Garoppolo around another year, get that comp pick just to say that it all worked out and to say that they were smart, as opposed to saying they lost on the deal, traded a 2nd for him, got a 6th or nothing, or released him. Straight up released him. You know what? The smart thing to do would be to cut bait and move on. I'm afraid they won't. And I think that is an ominous cloud hanging over this season. I think it is. Devin, what do you think? I don't know what he's talking about. Tyler says, thanks. I mean, for $1. I appreciate it. Here's $1. He said, if your dad ever come back on the show? Yes. Give him some time. Give him some time, but he's coming back. When does free agency start? Jimmy must be gone. Like the 14th is the legal tampering period.
Yeah, legal tampering period. I love that fact that we don't just open up free. It's like, well, we're going to allow you to kind of talk about it illegally, but it's legal.
It just makes it's like better for media headlines. It's
yes.
Like, oh, it's going to happen, but
it's
it has
rumor.
Matthew says this sunk cost fallacy is driving me nuts. We already got the value out of him. Thank you. Lynch already won the trade. Jimmy is an albatross. Cut him. Yeah, man, you got hella starts, playoff wins. You got it. Cut him.
I would only clarify Jimmy's salary is an albatross. I wouldn't call Jimmy an albatross. I would call his salary an albatross.
He's a good pro. He's a good teammate. Not an albatross. Salary's an albatross. All right, last Jimmy topic. And I think people may already see where I'm going with this. If the Niners keep Jimmy Garoppolo because there's no trade value, there's no trade market, and they don't want to release him for the reasons we spoke about, it would look bad for Kyle, the whole organization. Will he start in 2022 if he stays?
Doesn't he have to? I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Wouldn't it be just chaos if he didn't?
The locker room has already said what they want. If you keep Jimmy Garoppolo and make him the backup, you lose the locker room right there. And that's why he didn't do it this year. That's the only reason he didn't do it this year. You kept Jimmy on the team. Guess what? Jimmy is what you call popular. Okay? It's a concept. He's popular, all right? You might know that popular. He's popular. So Kyle, you can't compete with that. He's more popular than you. He's more popular than everyone in the world. All he does is smile and people love him. You can't compete with that, Kyle. So you kept him on the team and you underestimated the power of popularity. He's got it. He has personal relationships with all the important players on this team. If you don't believe me, go check out his Instagram when he was in Vegas 2 weeks ago. All the important players were there. He's not even on the team theoretically. So if you keep him here, he's the center, and Trey Lance is the outsider, and you can do nothing about that. That's why last season was what it was. If they keep him, he starts, and you have a repeat of 2021. And I think the Niners are dangerously close to doing it, Rob. You think I'm tripping?
I don't, in that if he stays around, he's got to start. I don't think you're tripping about that. Because
the locker room will insist upon it.
Yes. And, dude does have $100 million smile, whatever you want to say. Like, I understand the basis for his popularity, but the bottom line is you're right. He is popular.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. He's a great teammate.
Guy. Everyone likes him. He's popular. Kyle's not as down to earth as him. He's aloof. He's kind of hard to talk to.
Grew up playing linebacker, right? I mean, yeah. Jimmy is a guy's guy.
Grew up middle class, working class.
Yes.
Kyle grew up the son of Mike Shanahan. That's a little different. Can't relate to that.
Very different. This team almost melted down in 2021. The only thing that held everything together was the winning streak and Jimmy Garoppolo's insistence on not being a locker room cancer. The fact that he is a good guy, the fact that he said all the right things in front of the media. I get the sense in watching him toward the end of the year, he was fed up with that.
He wants to go.
He started to not follow the company line toward the end there. It was honest Jimmy.
And that's why if you keep him and bench him, it's not just that you're doing wrong to Jimmy. A lot of players on the team will be like, that's not right. How do you think Kittle feel? How do you think Juszczyk will feel? They would feel better about releasing him and letting him start over and being free.
Yeah.
And doing that to him, that would be that'd be a very unpopular move, keeping Jimmy and not playing him. We saw it play out last year.
Yeah.
Kyle was dying to. I mean, he had Trey Lance in on the first freaking drive of the season. Had him throw the first. How messed up was that? Jimmy Garoppolo leads you down the field and it's like, hey, Trey time. And everyone's like, dude, what are you doing? Kyle's like, oh, that's going to be unpopular. I'm going to lose the locker room. How did I not see this coming, man? Yeah, that's what's going to happen again, Kyle. You better, if you want control of this team, if you want to do what you want to do with this team, you got to release this guy. Otherwise, it's Jimmy's team. Jimmy's team, for better or worse.
Up and down the roster. I mean, guys like Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel came out in support of, Jimmy as their leader. You bring him back, and that's the case again for 2022. And now you have sacrificed another year of development.
but it's largely social with Jimmy. It's the fact that he's 30. It's the fact that he's built and worked to build personal relationships with everyone in the locker. He's good at it. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, yeah. I make fun of him all the time, and he sees me and says, hey, how you doing? Like, how can you not like that guy? He's so nice. So everyone likes him. He's spent the time. He's your age. He has a relationship. And Trey comes in. He's just this outsider. It's like, dude, I don't even know you. And frankly, I don't even want to get to it. I like him. That's my buddy. I know he's limited, but I don't even care. Like, I'm a tight end. I'm a wide receiver. I do my job. I'm not even thinking about his job. We like him. We win with him. I don't know you. At some point, the Niners have to say, look, guys, we made a business decision. We don't care who you like. It's not a social club. They say we're a family. When they lost that game into the Rams, they're like, first of all, we want everyone to know how much we like each other, how close we are. Don't care. Don't freaking care. Enough of that stuff. It's a business. It's not a family. It's a business, and you got to get over the top, and it's not going to be with Jimmy. You tried twice, 3 times. Got to try it with Trey, and if it's not Trey, you got to know that so you can try it with someone else.
Plus, it feels like the breakup has already happened. The speeches have been given. Like, everyone has moved on, and now you're going to be like, oh, no, we're back together.
On Facebook. They defriended each other on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, Jimmy Garoppolo's already on Tinder. He's just like, look, I can't really do the date yet because I'm still living here, but like, let me get back to you in 2 months. I think I'm going to be single, but it's a little bit, it's like that.
It's complicated right now.
Yeah. All right,
but the writing is on the wall. It would be so awkward to unwind everything that has been said to this point. But you can see the 49ers slowly trying to blur that line so that if they have to cross it, it's less glaring when they do so.
It's like if like with some guy on the, let's do it like this. Let's say on the Giants, some Madison Bumgarner or Tim Lincecum. Okay. Went from being their ace, their number one guy, and he starts to lose it. And do you just bury him in the bullpen? That's a lot of guys' friends on the team, or you cut him loose and say, look, man, good luck. Go try to pursue your dream somewhere else. Because I feel like you do that to Tim Lincecum. A lot of people are like, hey, that's just not right. Or Madison Bump, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, you can't disrespect the man like that because of his gravitas.
Exactly. So Niners, I don't know if you really thought it through. That's the thing. I don't think you really thought it through last year. I think you're like, hey, Jimmy and Trey on the team, I'll have my pick. Nah, you won't have your pick. And if you run it back this year, it'll still be out of your hands. Do you ever want to like take control and do what you want to do at quarterback? Or are you always going to say, well, my hands were tied?
That's interesting. The Niners traded all they did to go get Trey to give themselves options, but they lacked the foresight to see that they were actually forcing themselves into a situation where they had to start Jimmy Garoppolo.
Exactly. And they're about to do it again. They're about to do it again because they're afraid of the day that this headline comes out, Niners release Jimmy Garoppolo. Everyone's like, oh my God, you released him?
Nothing?
You fourth? Are you kidding? And everyone says, you're so done. It's the worst front office. Well, Trey Lance better work out. I don't think he's even ready. I mean, it's, for all offseason, it's just ad nauseum. And that's what everyone says locally. Everyone's like, what? Are you kidding? I don't think they want it. And they need to be strong and just take it. Who cares? What you don't need to win the offseason. Doesn't matter. I'll praise you.
You'll get one positive voice at least.
NASCAR Niners says, I don't think they will keep Jimmy just to save face. They just got rid of his prize quarterback coach, Rich. Hey, well, good. Hey, I'll give the Niners a big credit if they do the right thing there and just move on. Whatever they can get, I'll praise them. If they get a 4th-round pick for Jimmy, I'll give them a standing ovation. Swear. Everyone will be mad. I'll be like, no. You could get something good with the 4th-round pick. You kidding? Zach says if they keep Jimmy Garoppolo, they will have a real straight-up quarterback comp. And if they are stuck holding him, eventually a team will get desperate. No, you can't have a quarterback competition. No matter what happens, players on the team that like Jimmy will think Jimmy's better. Players on the team that like Trey will think Trey's better. You think they're objective? No. First of all, they're focusing on doing their own job. Second of all, they're pulling for their friend. Seriously. There's no such thing as a real quarterback competition. When one guy's been on the team for 5 years and everyone likes him, the other guy's like 22. He's even 22? Yeah, he's 21.
He's still 21. Yeah. Plus, you cannot pay that amount for a backup quarterback. The idea that they would eat that and be like, well, we couldn't get anything for him, but now we're just going to have him as our very, very, very expensive backup.
We just did this last year. Yes. Mike says, love how fired you up. All points are valid. I just love feeling like I have an epiphany and I can see where the Niners are going. And right now I feel like I got it. I get what's happening. The reason Schefter's saying what he's saying. It's like the Niners are getting these are like the early poll returns. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen with Jimmy, but right now they're like, ooh, no one's excited about it right now, but it's only February.
I like where you're going with this. I disagree on the first premise. I think Jimmy has value. I think he will get traded. But if I'm wrong about that one, I agree with you on the second point.
I hope
the Niners are forced into starting him.
I hope I'm wrong. I think I want to, but at the same time, the drama of having another year of the Jimmy Garoppolo Trey Lance thing would only benefit me. So either way, I'm good. I really don't care. I don't care. I'm apathetic. Thanks. Now the song Popular is stuck in my head. I don't even know what song that is. Popular? Money for proven free agents, extensions, unproven picks. Yes. Shout out from the mountaintops. Sean says, sorry, I just realized I have watched this show and topic before and since drafting Trey. Oh my God, just so already. For real, wish you well. Thanks. Am I repeating myself? I'm sorry. I just wanted to tell you that I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starting quarterback here next year and to get excited. Maybe.
But I like that he comes in to donate some cash on the way out to be like, hey, I've heard this before, but thank you anyway.
I appreciate it, Sean. David says Ayuk wants Lance to start. Well, Ayuk doesn't have that much standing on the team as we saw. He's one step away from the doghouse. Keeping Jimmy because of a few like Kittle is like appeasing a toddler's temper tantrum with candy. Yeah, man. I mean, we saw that last year. We saw them do that last year. What do you tell Jimmy if he stays? Extend my contract. Let's go. Yeah, let's definitely extend Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. If the Niners cut Jimmy, they will lose the locker room. They must trade him. No. If they cut him, I mean, dude, that's not. I disagree. I think they'll be like, good. They gave him a chance. Hey, Jimmy, go for it, man. Now he gets a fresh start. I'm happy for Jimmy. Who cares?
I think it would be the fan base that loses their stuff if we just cut him.
And the media would be harsh.
Yes, very harsh.
You can be a great guy and a predictable quarterback. Sure, as we've seen.
Very
John Lynch always talks about trying to be the Patriots, but Bill just cut Cam in training camp and played the rookie. No way he would keep Jimmy. Difference, though, was that Cam had no equity built up in that organization. He had no personal relationships built up in that locker room. Jimmy is Mr. 49. He's more popular than the head coach. Cam couldn't say that in New England.
And Cam had no trade value there, so.
Not just you, everyone, LOL. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it, man. All right. Now let's get into some non-Jimmy Garoppolo stuff. Because I think both think the Niners should trade Jimmy Garoppolo, but him aside,
yes.
Rob, name one player you think the 49ers should trade this offseason. Make the case.
Okay, so initially I was like, all right, just like who's the obvious candidate? And Dre Greenlaw comes to mind because I've been saying that for a while. But then I said, stop, Rob. Stop it. Get more creative. Let's see somebody else that the Niners might legitimately try to free up some cap space because that is their number one priority. Re-signing a lot of these free agents, and that's going to cost money. Where can they get smart on their books? And it came to me, Grant. It came to me like an epiphany. Robbie Gould. Okay. Robbie Gould. It kills me to say it. First of all, because he has a great name, Robbie. But secondly, because he's clutch. I mean, right? He adds significant value in a league where many games are decided by one possession or less, a touchdown or less. A field goal kicker who is quite accurate within 45 yards and reasonably accurate beyond that and very clutch in the playoffs is a valuable asset. He has a $6 million salary approximately going into this year. If the Niners trade him with a post-June 1 designation, they save $4 million. The other problem they're able to address here is between he and Mitch Wishnowsky, the 49ers cannot kick a touchback to save their freaking lives. And so now they could bring in a strong-legged kicker who could handle kickoffs as well. Now you can potentially put the ball into the end zone, get those touchbacks. Mitch Wishnowsky, it's harder to move on with less value in a trade. With Robbie Gould for a contender, he has to be an appealing option, much like he was to the Niners when they viewed him as a key piece in contending each year.
I like it. 40 years old, has struggled at times, clutch in the playoffs. You would save $4 million. My question is, what would you do with that $4 million? Would you use it to replace him? And in which case, do you feel like you're getting an upgrade? And if so, I'm all in.
I wouldn't upgrade at the kicker position. I would go a little more value here because I think the 49ers will be one of two things this coming season. One, either they take a little step backwards as Trey, goes through his growing pains. And at that point, do you need a top flight kicker? If you're fringe playoff level team, I would argue no, that's a luxury that you don't need. Or this offense really starts to frickin' unlock and they start to put up significant points. And they're not in as many contests decided by 3 points or fewer, in which case, again, I would make the case that you don't need that top end kicker. So I would look to go younger, stronger leg, and then I would divide that salary in half. What you're saving, that $4 million, you replace it with somebody who's closer to $1 million on the year. So you've got $3 million extra cap dollars to spend this year. Cut that in half and go $1.5 million higher in what you're willing to offer Laken Tomlinson and $1.5 million higher in what you're offering DJ Jones. Because to me, those two are much more important in bringing them back than having an elite level kicker.
I like it. You heard it, Robbie. You're on the trade block. Watch it, Buster.
It hurts me.
Brandon says, any chance Jimmy takes a pay cut in order to... I don't think so.
That's a sign of weakness.
I don't think so. It is Jimmy and his fans think he's just woefully underrated, which I appreciate about them. It is pure fantasy to think we get a second for Jimmy. That's how I feel. We will learn. I'm not ridiculing because I'm often wrong. So we will find out. And then when we find out then the ridiculing starts.
Yeah. I mean, just go for those that think it's ridiculous, just go back and look at the Carson Wentz trade, go back and look at the Sam Darnold trade. Like, sure. Yeah, the quarterback position, even for a mid-level quarterback, it's a supply and demand thing.
What I will say, though, is the reason I think Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz went for twos last year was those two teams, first of all, they screwed up. But they were like, why don't we can get sweet? These two are starters. We can get starters with second-round picks. Wow. And then, Carson Wentz was fine. He wasn't good enough. Sam Darnold, not a starter. So for Jimmy to get that second-round pick, a team would have to be like, Jimmy's our starter this year. And I'm going back to, I don't see that team right now. But again, we'll have to see how things shake out.
Right. It's a numbers game, right? Between Washington, Carolina, and Pittsburgh, you got to have three starting quarterbacks there.
Trade Nick Bosa and get younger at the position. Oh, dang. Here's the thing with Nick Bosa. I would be open to trading Nick Bosa eventually, but his value isn't going down anytime soon. Even though he's gotten hurt, he's shown he can bounce back. He's young. His value will stay pretty much the same for a while. I don't think there's any urgency to trade him at this point. Trade him in 5 years, in 10 years, not now. This is the time you want him, I think.
Also fair to ask how much younger you're getting at the position. The dude's just going into his fourth year, right?
Like, if there were a dude, if you thought you could get the number 2 pick in this draft and you thought Aiden Hutchinson was as good as him, yes. But first of all, he's not. So what's the point? I don't think there's any player in this draft who's as good as Nick Bosa. So what's the point? Not this year. So this is I'm just starting to get into the draft. It's not a super great draft.
The only way you're pursuing this, in my mind, is if you're terrified of the injury question. And I just don't think that that's a realistic scenario given the way this past season played out.
One day, maybe. Not at this time. That's how I feel.
Right.
All right. Here's why I think the 49ers should trade George Kittle.
Oh, man.
All the players on the team, I think he makes the most sense to trade. Not Deebo Samuel, not Nick Bosa, George Kittle. George Kittle is an elite tight end.
Yes.
But he missed 11 games the past 2 years. He was injured all of the last 2 seasons. He got injured week 1 both years and basically soldiered it out the whole time, which is great. So he's been hurt a lot. He's missed time. Turns 29 in October. And if he has another injury-filled season, he will become untradeable. He will be the next Jimmy Garoppolo on your team, where he's getting paid elite money, and it's been 3 years in a row that he hasn't given you elite results, 3 years in a row that he's been injured, and then the next year he'll be 30. So whatever you thought you could get, he's just an albatross because of his contract and his injuries, just like Jimmy. He's 1 year away from being the next Jimmy. And I'm not saying he will. He could have a bounce back year, but he's had 2 in a row. What are you banking on? His playing style? So far, his injuries have been a lot of non-contact stuff as well. So the way I see it is when they paid him to be the number one option in their passing attack. They gave him $16 million a year. That's wide receiver money. And they're like, that's cool because we use him like a wide receiver. We give him so many targets. Not anymore. Now it's all about Debo. And when Trey Lance is the quarterback, it might be about Ayuk as well. Lance is the opposite of Jimmy Garoppolo, who wants to work in this little area. Lance wants to go way out. He doesn't really, he kind of is erratic in the little area. He wants to go down the field and outside the numbers. So Kittle got phased out down the stretch. He was getting like 25 yards a game, 2 catches a game, and a lot of the games down the stretch. I think if you trade him now, also he's a big Jimmy Garoppolo guy. Who knows how he feels about the Trey Lance era? If you trade him now, you could get a late first. If you wait a year and he has a repeat of the last 2, he's the next Jimmy Garoppolo on your team.
I cannot fault you for what you say about if he has another injury this year. To me, I think you're dead on with that. Like, you could wind up in a scenario where that contract becomes an absolute albatross and you can't move on, and he's a little bit, a shell of himself after suffering through multiple injuries. To me, though, this feels like it would be a mistake on the level of DeForest Buckner, in that you get these guys that epitomize what you want, not just at the position with what they bring on the field, but the mentality that they bring to it as well, and the meaning that they have within the locker room. I thought it was a mistake to trade DeForest Buckner when they did. I understood the move from a financial standpoint. And I would understand if the 49ers moved on in this regard, in how you're suggesting they should trade George Kittle as well, from a financial standpoint. But from an emotional team building standpoint, to me, it doesn't make sense. You have a skill set that fits in Kyle Shanahan's offense beautifully. You have an individual whose injury prone nature is based on his style of play, but that style of play is admirable. It's one that you want your offense to have, right? Kyle Shanahan is striving for this positionless offense. Everybody's a dog. Everybody's got this I'm going to run through you mentality. And Debo and George Kittle epitomize that on the offense. To me, it's why you have to pay Debo this offseason, and it's why trading George Kittle would be a mistake, because it's a part of your offensive identity.
The difference between trading Kittle and trading Buckner is that Buckner was 25 when they traded him.
Right.
Buckner had missed 1 game in 4 years when they traded him. Buckner was the 7th pick in the draft and got better. Kittle was a 5th round pick. He had some great years, but the last 2 have not been great. He's missed 11 games the last 2 years. Buckner's never done anything like that. Part of the thing with Buckner was the durability and the consistency and the fact that he always gave you the same effort and you could count on it week in, week out. Kittle is not that guy anymore. Kittle's the guy that gets hurt week 1, and then he's telling you about it all freaking. Well, that's what he's been the last 2 years. And this year it was a calf injury that he just mysteriously got week 1 and limited him the entire year. To me, I would. It seems like his body is trending a certain direction, and I wouldn't bank on him having a bounce back where he's suddenly durable at 29. I mean, even in 2018, 2019, he played through a lot of injuries. He's always been injured. I mean, this is kind of who he is. I feel like it's going to catch up to him. I understand keeping him, but I think it's an emotional decision. I think you could get a 1 for him now. If he has another down season, I don't know what you get for him. And again, like he's still a good player. He's still really good, but $16 million a year good? Can you afford to pay that for him when you're not even targeting him that much, when the whole offense goes through Debo and he's hurt a lot of the time? I think no. And I think you got to make business decisions, not emotional decisions. I know he's friends with the players in the team. He's part of the identity, I don't know if he can be part of the foundation anymore. Not when you're approaching 29 and you miss this many games and you're hurt this consistently. If he could turn it around, great. But I keep going back to what Bill Walsh said. Better to trade a year early than a year late. And the whole thing with trading a year early is it's scary. It's scary. You're like, well, it's a year early, right? What he's 29, right? He could bounce back, right? We don't know. So that's why you say it. If he doesn't, you're screwed. It's like you had kind of a so-so hand. You just really needed to wait and see what the river was. And you're like, oh, I still have nothing. And I put a bunch of money down. Like, that's where you're at. You don't want that to happen. So you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You're trying to figure out how much money to wager on the flop.
Hey, at 2019, it looked like maybe the Chiefs had given up on D Ford a little early. And then by the end of 2019, 2020, it was like,
Got
that's
it.
why they got rid of him.
Got it.
Because they understood.
If the Niners started calling teams offering Kittle, I'd be nervous. Like, what the hell do they know that we don't?
Right?
Yeah.
I do think, for me personally, it's definitely emotional. When you start this topic, I'm like, Grant, we stopped talking about George Kittle. This is George Kittle we're talking. But that's just me being attached to him as a player. I was going to bring up the Bill Walsh philosophy as well, because I do think that applies here. You're talking about a guy who is a little bit older for where he is in his contractual status, right?
Doesn't apply to Bosa, doesn't apply to Debo, but if it applies to anyone, it's Kittle.
He's close to 30, and I do think that Bill Walsh would explore this idea, in particular if he had his eye on someone he could bring in to replace him, right? There are a couple of sort of borderline tight ends that are out there that you could see bringing in. You would save significant money, you wouldn't have to commit to them long term, and you would bring in a considerable asset for George Kittle at this point in time.
And final thing, I mean, the money they would save, you get rid of Jimmy this year, that's $24 million in cap space. And Kittle, if you trade him pre-June 1, you save $3.4 million this year, $7.7 million next year, $13.5 million the year after that, and $15 million the year after that. If it's post-June 1, it's $11.9 this year, $12.2 million the year after, $14 million the year after, and $15 million the year after. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And unless you see yourself using him heavily the next 4 years, then keep him, of course. But if this is like he's getting phased out anyway, I mean, what the hell happened the last 6 weeks, Rob? Like, Jawan Jennings was getting more looks at him. That can't keep you got to tell me he was hurt, Kyle. You got to tell me he was hurt, and that the plan is that he's going to have 125 targets next year. But really, I don't want him to have 125 targets. I want Debo to have as many as Cooper Kupp. How many did Cooper Kupp have this year? That's how many I want Debo to have. The hell?
A lot.
I want that. Thanks, Kittle, but it's all about Debo now. And I really think there's no way the Niners can justify paying him what they paid him that because they didn't know about Debo. Now it's like, man, what's more value to them? Kittle at $16 million at 29 or a first round pick? That's the question. I don't know. Is he worth the first round pick? That's my question. Or is it a 2?
The other question is, does Kittle benefit from the move to Trey, right? Assuming that the worst case scenario doesn't happen and we actually move on to Trey, I think you have to ask that question. I would hope that he does. I would think that some of those deep targets would come back. I mean, Nick Mullins was the one most responsible for George Kittle's statistical season back in 20.
It's like, George, what would you rather do? Catch the ball and run through 5 defenders or catch the ball over the top of the defense? You tell me, man, because you can do that, right?
But you have to ask, in asking that question, will he progress? You have to say, has he lost a step in the past couple of seasons since that magical 2018 statistical season? Is he the same deep shot that he was? Because he didn't look like it throughout last season, but that was a lingering freaking injury that was there since week 1. And so you have to begin to weigh, is that injury going to reoccur? What's the likelihood of that? Has he lost a step? Do we get the value? I would guess, though, that there's significant dead money associated with trading George Kittle as well. My guess is because of how
I just went through it. Pre-June 1, it's a little bit more. Post-June 1, you get some breaks, but still, it's like, it's not just this year. It's the whole life of the contract.
Yeah, it's not the cap savings. I'm more concerned with that dead money that just becomes an albatross.
Certainly, but what the bigger albatross is if he's hurt in the future and you can't move him,
not
like
contributing.
If he's D Ford, then that's the real albatross. And the better thing is to get rid of him now. But we don't know. Swan Song says Jimmy G, Kittle, and McFloppy for pick 11 and 20. No, here's the problem. That's a lot of money going to a team. Some team would have to have $100 million in cap space to take on for. They'd rather just probably cut Jimmy. You can't send out that much money. Can't happen. Would you trade Kittle in a pick to Miami 4 picks? Yes, but what is Kittle worth? To me, I'm not sure. He hasn't had 2 great seasons. I mean, it's been 2 years since he's been elite. Maybe a first.
I would think so.
On that? Maybe a first, late first. Debo today is where Kittle was when Kittle broke the tight end record. We used him into the ground. I hope I'm wrong, though. Here's the thing with Kittle. The thing that's so concerning is so the injury that knocked him out of 2020 was the foot that just broke when he was running, right? Like totally freaky non-contact. And then again, this year, week 1, calf non-contact. And this year, to me, I thought he came in lighter, and he was talking about, well, I need to take a little bit of weight off so that doesn't happen again to my lower. I got to prevent these non-contact lower body injuries. Boom, another one happens. So that's 2 in a row. What's happening with that lower body there? It's not even like his playing style. It's like I'm 250 pounds and I run a 4.5, and there's a lot of G-forces on that. I mean, I ran a 4.5 when I was 18, but I was 165. Yeah, I ran a 4.5. Humble brag.
Humble brag, indeed.
It was hand timed by my roommate, so I believe it. And I was on a track, and I had spikes, so I think that pretty much shaves off about 1/10 of a second. So I wasn't that fast, but I was decent. This show is about me and how fast I could run when I was 18. That's important.
I've done a quarter mile in 10 seconds, if that counts, but I wasn't running.
That's warp speed. All right, let's go. So Kittle, you're traded. All right. Are the Niners going extra cheap in the secondary? I mean, like, they're going to potentially move on from Tart and K1 to replace them with Hufanga and Lenore? 2 5th-round picks from last year? That seems ambitious.
It seems like something the 49ers could attempt to do, trying to replace Jaquiski Tart by, hey, we'll have an open camp competition. We've got Talanoa Hufanga and Moore, and they'll come in, and one of the two, Hufanga has got a great nose for the ball. He's an elite special teamer. Moore is so athletic. Between those two, one of them will really claim the job and get cheap there, and then say to themselves, well, we have our starting duo at the outside. So as long as we can make do at the nickel, we'll be okay. We'll roll with E-Man and Ambry Thomas outside, and maybe, have Lenore there at the nickel and prioritize everything else. And that would match with what the 49ers have said to us continually about what they're willing to spend for the secondary versus the pass rush in their defense. To me, this would be a critical error by the 49ers. It would be akin to going into the season, penciling in Akello Witherspoon to start after that season where he flashed a little something. It would be counting on a next leap by several players without significant evidence that that's actually going to happen. To me, it would be a bit of insanity to get so cheap at these positions. I'm okay with going the value route when exploring free agency, but if they just ignore it in its entirety and add late round draft picks to fill out those rooms, I will be very disappointed.
I've been thinking for years about how to build teams and which positions to invest in and which ones you spend on, which ones you draft. I think really it depends on your coaching staff. If you have Chris Kosarick, do you really need to spend big investments on D-line? Or are you uniquely positioned to get guys off the scrap heap? You know what I mean? Like guys who were 3rd-round picks that busted, like Arden Key, and boom, they're good for you. I think the Niners, you can go cheap on the D-line. Now, they have Nick Bosa that helps too, but really, they've shown that they can get by with spare parts on the D-line. If they had a secondary coach like that, great. You could do it too. And when Fangio was here, he had Ed Donatel as the DB coach. He did it. I mean, they brought in freaking Carlos Rogers, scrap heap. No one wanted him. Got him going. I mean, they brought in Dante Whitner. 1st-round pick, but it was a huge bust for Buffalo. I don't know if you remember, brought him in, made him a good player, used him correctly. Tremaine Brock. Who the hell was Tremaine Brock? Undrafted free agent, became a really good player. Parrish Cox, over and over and over again. So they could do it. It depends on if you have the position coach to pull it off. They have it at running back. They have it at D-line. I don't think they have it at DB coach. I'm not saying Corey Unland's bad, but you got to be really good to pull that off. I haven't seen that.
I would agree. To me, I haven't seen that type of development by the 49ers in the secondary. They certainly have it at other positions. If they had brought back Fangio as an assistant, I would have felt better about going a little cheap at that. But to me, I mean, you've got to make some investments there. You have to. And to me, you've got to look at the safety market and realize that it's actually pretty robust. So the 49ers can get value without getting cheap in my mind. So they can still be strategic in spending fewer dollars at this position without making the mistake of going the extreme value shopper route of getting all their groceries at the dollar store.
It just seems to me like if you are the kind of team that has Chris Kosarick and you don't have to spend a ton on, and the Niners do spend a lot of their D-line, but you don't have to. Like, they could be spending more on their secondary. If you're going to spend on anything in the defense, it should be that. Because, I mean, look, you develop linebackers easily. Who the hell is Azeez Al-Shaair? Oh, he's a freaking baller that you got out of nowhere that no one else wanted, but you made him good. Same with Dre Greenlaw. Same with Fred Warner, honestly. Third-round pick. No one else wanted him like that. So you can do it at linebacker. You can do it at D-line. Maybe you should be spending in the secondary as opposed to trying to see if maybe your fifth-round picks can get it done. Like, yeah, on D-line, I'd trust it. At that linebacker, I'd trust it, but I haven't seen the track record there. I don't trust it at secondary. I don't trust it on the offensive line. You got to know what you can develop.
Yeah, I would find myself more in the middle of still prioritizing, because I think along the defensive line, I give Chris Kosarick credit for two things, not just what you're mentioning there as far as finding value and getting those cast-offs and reclamation projects and building them back up. I do think Kyle Shanahan's correct when he says one of the most important things a coach can do is get your A players to play like A players consistently. And so that. I do think, Chris Kosarick deserves that credit for getting Nick Bosa and other first-round draft picks to really perform at that level. But I wouldn't go overboard in then getting extremely cheap at the defensive back position. And so to me, it's somewhere in the middle there. The Niners will continue to spend most of their assets along the defensive line, in my mind. That's what the evidence points to in years past. That's what they've said to us over and over again. I predict that will be the case again, that they attempt to sign Arden Key, and that's going to cost them considerable money. They're going to invest in DJ Jones to shore up that run game, and that's going to cost them considerable money. I see them having to go with those B-level, average, more not journeymen, but closer to journeymen defensive backs to fill out the rest of that secondary.
I just feel like we've seen, Nick Bosa is great, but he got hurt in the first half against Dallas. The Niners' second pass rush might have been even better in the second half. Not to say that Bosa isn't important, but they can perform without him.
It's true.
And like what we've seen is it's more important to have wave after wave depth of pass rushers than one great guy. You can triple team a Nick Bosa, but once the rest of the guys are getting one-on-ones and they win, now you got something. And I think what the Niners have shown is they can go 8 deep with pass rushers, even if you took away one elite one. They would still have 7, 8 good ones, and that's very hard to deal with. I think what they have in the secondary is a lot of guys who are solid but can be isolated by elite offenses, elite receivers, and can ultimately be not good enough. I don't know. It seems like the Niners might want to reconsider and maybe start putting a little bit of emphasis, a little money investment into the secondary.
And very little depth. I mean, it took nary a single injury to bring in Josh Norman or Dante Johnson, right? And credit to Dante Johnson. And they play 100%
of the snaps because they're in the secondary. It's not like on the D-line where if you have a great coach like Kosarick and you have platoons up and down the line, they're run defenders, your pass rushers, you can go money ball all the way. In the secondary, if you're playing, you're out there 100% of the time unless you're the nickel guy, and then you're out there 75% of the time. I mean, they can't hide you.
No, you're exposed.
Yeah, so they won't listen to us though, Rob. All right, final thing. Let's talk big picture filling out the secondary. How do you see it going down?
I mean, to me, it's the two key free agents that the 49ers either have to re-sign or find suitable replacements for. It's Jaquiski Tartt and K'Wan Williams. I do think that they've done sufficient jobs at building out some depth, some of the starting positions. I'm fond of the idea of obviously Jimmy Ward coming back and retaining his free safety spot there. Yeah. And I like the starting duo of Ambry Thomas and Emmanuel Mosley, although I would like someone in the mix that pushes for a starting role. I don't think they bring in anyone that can clearly snag it right away because I think they get freaking cheap, but they need to bring in someone that can actually legitimately compete.
I want to say something real quick. Moses is solid number 2. I don't think he's a number 1. Thomas is intriguing, but
Yes.
Ahkello Witherspoon was intriguing after his rookie year. A lot of times, you can't just assume that a guy who's shown some nice things as a rookie is going to come back and be better. A lot of times, they're worse. So I like Ambry, and I wouldn't say like go backwards with him, bury him, let him compete. And I think he could definitely be a number 2 as well, or a number 3. I think the Niners still need a number 1. I could be wrong. Maybe that's Ambry. Maybe Ambry becomes that guy. But if they find a number 1, hey, I think you should get him.
The interesting thing is how much cornerbacks cost, right? I mean, people throw out J.C. Jackson. They're like, oh my goodness, I'm in love with J.C. Jackson. The Niners need to go get J.C. Jackson. That's great if the Niners want to spend, 18, 19, $20 million, right? Like it is going to cost a fortune to sign J.C. Jackson. And the Niners have not shown any willingness to spend that amount of money on a cornerback. Even the next tier, Carlton Davis from the Bucks, right? I don't think that
100 mil. I mean, that's what you got to do. It's a really premium position, and there's not that many great ones.
I could see them attempting to go value and killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The one that gets thrown out pretty frequently that I do wonder if the Niners will consider if the market is soft, given the age, is Stephon Gilmore because of his ability to flex inside. It's that positional flexibility of playing nickel and outside corner, and the value you could potentially get that he's 32.
Because real quick, you're in a division with Cooper Kupp and DeAndre Hopkins, both guys who go to the slot frequently, if not most of the time. So what's the point of having a number 1 corner who can't go there? You played yourself. Your guy has to be able to go to the slot. Yep.
But it goes back to, 49ers fans and their trepidation around injury history and the fact that Stephon Gilmore was not able to finish the season last year. And you would think that the front office is pretty skeptical about injured players at this point as well. They certainly seem to have adjusted their draft strategy to focus on guys with very healthy track records. You would think they'd do the same in free agency again this year.
There's also DJ Reed, good cornerback, was with Seattle. Mason says Gilmore hinted on Sherman Pod. He's going to SF for Seattle. Didn't know that. Interesting.
I love that.
That's a tough competition for the Niners because there's no state income tax in Washington, which is a big deal for football players. Big deal.
But they're not competing for anything at this point, right? I mean, Seattle's pretty much looked at as rebuilding for a 32-year-old dude. Yeah.
Well, maybe he's a big Russell Wilson fan. Don't know. Maybe he thinks Trey Lance just isn't quite ready. Who knows? Ernie, everyone has an opinion, right? Ernie, thank you. Appreciate it. That's all I got. Anything else in your mind?
Well, safety, just to list off the idea that there are so many quality. Within the top 80 free agents available, there are 9 safeties in there. Now, the majority of those are people who spend more snaps at free safety than strong safety, but all of them have split in some way. You have, let's go through them just to throw out the names that people have been referencing. Jesse Bates from the Bengals, right? He's 8 on the list, but that's going to take a significant amount of money. I don't anticipate the Niners spending $15 million plus on a safety. Tyrann Mathieu from the Chiefs, number 9. Marcus Williams from the Saints, number 10 on the list. Quandre Diggs from the Seahawks, number 31 of the top 150. Justin Reed from the Texans, number 76. Marcus May from the Jets, number 77. Jordan Whitehead from the Bucks. That's one I've got my eye on there, Jordan Whitehead. He was listed 78th. Terrell Edmonds from the Steelers, an underperforming previous first-round draft pick. He was 28th overall in the 2018 draft. That's another intriguing one. And Jaron Kearse from the Cowboys rounds out as that 9th player in the top 80. So all that to say that you could see a soft safety market yet again. It has been years since, these mid-range safeties got what they deserve, as evidenced by Jaquiski Tartt coming back on that minimum deal. By the way, I just noticed in doing this research, Marcel Harris made a higher base salary than Jaquiski Tartt last year. That stings.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Look, Tartt probably won't get much. Seems like he's probably going to leave. I think the Niners I'm going to give the Niners the benefit of the doubt and say that they're in reality. They're in the real world. They know that Hufanga hasn't shown enough, and they're going to try to get an upgrade.
Yeah.
Strong safety.
Yep.
And there was a rumor, I don't know how credible it was, that they were interested in Jabril Peppers. 26 was a first round pick in 2017, number 25. Did return kicks and punts in college. On Spot Track, they say that his market value is 4 years, $50 million. Kind of expensive. I'm sure the Niners could backload it, but they could do something along. If that's what they're looking for, Jabril Peppers, then they're thinking about a 3-4 year deal worth something a little bit more than they gave to Jimmy Ward. That's interesting. That opens up a lot of possibilities.
It does. I think a lot of the safeties that I listed on the second half of this list could be had at that price range. If the Niners are willing to spend that much at the position, I do think that they can upgrade. I do wonder, I'm with you that I think Jaquiski Tartt, I think it's probably he that chooses to move on from the 49ers. I think the 49ers would extend him another sort of minimum deal. My guess is that with everything that happened in the championship game, it's probably just emotionally easier for Tartt to move on at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the Niners feel they can upgrade. If they don't get Jabril Peppers, they could get Terrell Edmonds, who's even younger. I think was a first-round pick as well, 25 from Pittsburgh.
He was 28th overall in 2018. I like that one. That's a sneaky 25. One.
He probably cost you about the same. 3 years, $30 million, 4 years, $40 million, whatever.
He missed one game in his 4 seasons.
Yeah, he'd be really nice. So how about Terrell Edmonds from Pittsburgh? Something like that. That'd be
He
nice.
Also played 250 snaps at the slot corner.
Oh, boom. There you go. There you go. Maitland Eagle says corner class is deep this year. Take one in the second. Cool. I like it. Take advantage of that if that's true, because a lot of times corner classes are done by like pick 40, like last year.
Yes, which is why you make the case the Niners should be drafting in the second round every freaking year.
Every freaking year. There you go. So safety, we got the Niners. We just put Terrell Edmonds on the Niners. That's good.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Bring in a member of the Steelers secondary.
Yeah, why not?
They got Witherspoon. We can get Edmonds.
Exactly. And then we also got Gilmore. We just made the Niners a lot better. And people are mad that I traded George Kittle and you traded Robbie Gould. Get over it.
Cap savings brought in that talent. That's what it did.
Make sure you follow Rob on YouTube. I forgot to put in the link as I always do, but I will put it in after. Follow Rob.
You can see the spelling right there. SCHUH. You just go search that on YouTube. I'm going to be on with Jack Hammer at 4 p.m. today. We will get into combine stuff because, oh, by the way, Grant, I'm headed to the combine. And we will be breaking down these safeties and cornerbacks just a little bit further.
Yeah. And tonight I'm going to Legends of West Coast Hip Hop concert in Oakland. It's going to be Too Short, DJ Quick,
Short,
Loonies, Warren G. Oh, it's going down.
Dude, that's a lineup.
Sugar T. Is that E40's sister? I think so. Sugar. That's my sister.
Water.
Sprinkle me, man. Oh, so if you're there, holla at me. If not, I'll be back. The Cohn phone tomorrow morning. Hold on. Alfredo says, Grant, you missed my question earlier. Big fan of. Oh, I'm so sorry, Alfredo. I apologize. I would criticize you, but you just keep it real, and I have to admit that. But you didn't say what the question was. Hold on. Should I look back through the whole show?
He wanted to make you do some work, make you scroll back through, find that comment.
Alfredo. Hold on, let me see. Okay, I'm at 12:02. Still don't see you.
Alfredo.
He was just steaming. He was just like, this he's not going to answer my freaking question.
This dude right here, Grant, just going to take the money and run. Here it is.
Got you. Trade Eric Armstrong. It was worth it.
Eric Armstrong.
And Jim G could save us around $40 million in cap space. I think the Niners should definitely trade Eric Armstrong. What do you think?
I mean, who is this Eric Armstrong guy anyway, and why are we paying him so much? Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. I'm with it. That's another guy I would probably trade. His value is very high right now. The thing with Armstead is he hasn't gotten hurt in a long time.
No. And he's very versatile. I mean, I think that he has more value to the San Francisco 49ers than to other teams within their scheme fit. But you could get something for him. I wouldn't, but you could.
Yeah. Toxic Runner says we should trade Jimmy and Armstead more caps. We got you. Oh,
people are on the trade Armstead.
Right. Yeah. You meant Armstrong, though. Armstrong. His offensive coach is leaving a red flag about Trey. Not necessarily, man. Oh, I don't really respect Rich Scangarello's quarterback. I don't care his opinion. I'm sorry. I know more about quarterbacks than you, Rich. Peace. Anthony Lynn is very excited about Trey Lance. How about that?
Very excited.
Very excited. At least Lynch the fall guy for staying. They don't need a fall guy yet, do they?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Coming off an unexpected NFC Championship game, we riding high right now.
All right, I have to go mentally prepare to listen to DJ Quick. The Loonies are going to be there. Yuckmouth. Also, they're going to have Digital Underground, but Shock G obviously won't be there because he died. But they'll still play their hits, and I'm sure Money B will be there. Tupac won't be there. You know, Tupac he's danced for Digital Underground. He actually
started with him.
That's right.
I definitely knew that, dude. Oh, I think the only rap song I know the lyrics start to finish would be the Humpty Dance. I mean, I listened to that over and over and over again. That was my first CD, Digital Underground, Sex Packets.
That whole album is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
I listened to it a bunch when Shock G died, and there's like all kind of deep cuts in it. They're like, this stands the test of time. It came out like 89.
Serious lyrics in that. Go listen to it.
And like, he's hella funny. He did the different personalities. He was Shock G, but he was also Humpty sometimes. And he would do like they would like go trade verses, be himself. I mean, who did stuff like that in 80? He was quite cool. I think the song is Sex Packets. Quite good. Where he's slanging them. Anyway, that's enough. We got 5-year-olds watching this show. Karan told me to stop cursing. I apologize. They're not they're a little too young for the Digital Underground.
Come on, Grant.
Stop
what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to.
Both of them. Go follow Rob, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow.